Okay, the next one is one that I started last year on a large, fairly large piece. I don't remember what it was, using one color of a variegated floss, and I think it was a DMC, and I loved the way that was looking and how that was turning out, and so I wanted to kind of give that a try. I'd never done that in cross stitch before, and I had this little alphabet sampler that was really done in pinks and greens for Valentine's Day, and I decided, I had some DMC variegateds, and I decided to use one of the pinkish reddish variegated. And so I'd started this last year and I didn't finish it, and I got it finished up. I really wanted to frame this, and I think this would look better framed, but I did not have a frame that was, it's long. It's probably 15 inches, and I didn't have a frame wide enough to put it in. And so I ended up turning it into a pillow, and then I thought that looked kind of plain Jane, and so then I added the buttons. And you know what, it's okay. This is nothing to write home about. It looks cute up on a little shelf out in the front entryway, but it was kind of more of an experiment in using that variegated floss, and I really do like how that floss turned out. So, and then several years ago, I had a request to make a t-shirt quilt for friends whose daughter was graduating high school, and I said sure, and when they brought me her t-shirt, she had 99 t-shirts. So and she wanted the front and back of both of them, of all of the t-shirts. She wanted to use the fronts and the backs. And so I ended up making her 3 quilts. And she was a girly girl, pink girl. And so I bought yards and yards and yards of this pink butterfly fabric for the backs of, I think I put this on the backs of 2 of those quilts. And I still have quite a bit left. And so I just used that to finish off the back. So yeah, that turned out okay. And my finishing on this pillow was hard to it was hard to finish because it's so long and so narrow. So and then I finished, totally inspired by my friend Colleen, and Colleen is my rug hooking friend. I've known her for I think about 8 years. We were trying to figure that out the other day. We met through rug hooking, and she is just a very, very talented lady. But she does cross stitch, and I do some finishing for her of her cross stitch. She finishes her own rugs, but she had finished. She's been doing all the word plays, the Brenda Gervais word plays, and she had finished February and brought it to me to finish for her daughter, or for her mother. For her mother's birthday on February 16th. And so when she brought it to me unfinished, and she wanted it into a hanging pillow, and she had some rusty bells that she wanted me to add onto it, I was so blown away by how pretty it was that I stitched February wordplay as well. And then I had gotten this frame for 99 cents at the Goodwill, and intending to paint it, and decided it did not need paint, just cleaned up a little bit. And so I cleaned up the frame. I got some fabric at Joann's. I don't know if this fabric is called, oh, I just forgot what it's, ticking. I don't know if this is considered ticking, or if this is just a striped fabric, but it's almost like a seersucker kind of fabric. And I loved it, and so I got a couple of yards of that just for finishing. I had one little key left. My oldest daughter collects these kind of keys in all different shapes and sizes, and on her, when I made the ring bearer pillow for her wedding, I added some of these keys, and I had one left from that stash, and so I stuck that down here, and I think that goes really well. And so yeah, so just finished a simple bow. I wanted it, I felt like this was a very simple pattern, and kind of wanted it to speak for itself. And I can always change the bow out later, but I was pleased with how that turned out. On a side note to that, so I finished, probably at the end of January, I finished Colleen's wordplay into a pillow for her mom, and she gave it to her mom early. And 2 weeks later, a week before her birthday on the 16th, Colleen's mom had a massive stroke, and looked like she was going to be okay. She was doing better. They had moved her to rehab, and she passed away. And so luckily Colleen was able to give her the pillow, but And, you know, she was able to have it for a couple weeks. But, yeah, so if you think about her, just keep her in your thoughts. They were very close, and it's one of those kind of yucky things. Okay, moving on. So those are my, those are my stitching finishes. Then if you remember in my last video, well, I don't expect you to remember because that was like 5 weeks ago. I talked about rug hooking and wanting to hook from a stash and all the patterns I had, yada, yada, yada. And then I think at the end of that video, I said something like, although I don't have any Valentine rugs, and so the next week I went and I bought 3 Valentine rug patterns, and I finished 2 of them. And so one is really tiny, and I finished it in a couple hours. This is supposed to be a chair mat, but I actually use it as a little, I throw it on my stove. I have a flat top stove, and I throw it on that just for a little bit. And I have several of these seasonal, but it fits nicely up there. But it's a little Sunbonnet Susie with her little heart. The colors aren't showing up very good. She's kind of in a couple different colors of lavender, and then her apron's kind of an off-white. And so I still need to finish off the edges of this, but I finished Susie, got Susie done, literally got her done in, I don't know, like 2 hours or something. It probably took me longer to choose the wool for her than it did to stitch her. And then I found a Valentine sampler, well, more of a quilt sampler, but I thought it spoke kind of Valentine-y to me, and I wanted to make it look really old, like an old quilt. This isn't super huge, but I do have to back up. So it has, it has 5 squares in it. Top square is kind of a, I don't know, viney thing, viney wreath with a heart, and then a little a house, a flower, and then down below is this. Those were the biggest. I thought I was never going to finish hooking those little berries. They about drove me nuts. And then to do the background around those was just, oh, that took me forever. And then a little, I don't know if that's called a courthouse step or if that's a log cabin block. But anyway, so that's kind of the whole block, or the whole rug. It has not even been steamed, so I need to steam that and get that finished. And then there was a third one that I just barely started, and it's going to get put away because now I need to work on some spring things. I actually have a class in not this coming weekend, but the following weekend, and I'm going to be doing a vintage postcard rug, so I'm looking forward to that. Okay, works in progress, also not related to stitching, since I showed you rugs. Gosh, my words. I started this last year, didn't finish it, and didn't finish it again this year, but got part of the way on it. This is from a Blackbird Designs booklet that I bought several years ago that has cross stitch, wool applique. I think it has some rug hooking in it. It has several different kinds, some recipes in it. But anyway, this was, and I changed this up a little bit, but this was, it's a little table runner. And so I actually have a cabinet that I'm going to put this on, and I added the pennies. I'm going to do the pennies on 3 sides, not the 4th side. But the pennies take forever to add. Those are there. But this had a really neat, and I'm going to forget what this stitch is called, the feather stitch possibly, a really neat stitch that after you stitch together, and I stitched all of this by hand, so I didn't use the sewing machine. I could have, but wool is very easy to stitch together by hand. So I applicate all the hearts on, and then I stitch the individual blocks together by hand, and then the pattern called for you to add this stitching on the outside, and there were directions on how to do that, and it just made it. I mean, it just made all the difference. At first I wasn't going to add it, and I thought, well, I'll see how it looks, and I love how that looks. It looks very vintagey and very old. And I may not put a back on this. I'm not really sure, but I used several different colors of red. I mean, this isn't, it's really bright out today. I mean, it's not sunny, it's cloudy, but it's bright cloudy. It's kind of weird. So the colors aren't showing up the best, but anyway, you get the idea. And then I got the new Primitive Quilts magazine, and I honestly, I think there are, I don't know, like 12 projects in that magazine, and I want to do 10 of them. And 3 of them are wool applique that I want to do, and so I went to my local wool store and bought all the wool and got a fairly good start on the first one. This is a penny rug. Now, most of this isn't stitched down. Oh, that light is just the worst. I am so sorry. Most of this isn't stitched down. You can see this little corner. That light, you can't even see. There we go. You can kind of see. So you stitch these little circle flowers, and then a lot of them have more stitching inside of them as well. So, and then there's bees. And then I'll quilt this by hand with little bee trails all over it. So, yeah, I'm sorry, you're not getting a really good picture of what that looks like. It's really cute. It's called, it's a pattern from Primitive Quilts and Projects. It's the Spring 2018 edition. It has this on the front cover. I also bought all the wool to make this. Different colors, though. And this is what that's what this one is going to look like when it's finished. I think that's just lovely. Now this was done in cottons and I think hand brush cottons, and I'm doing mine in wools, but you know what? I may make it again in the cottons because I like the cottons so much. Okay, what have I been working on in the cross stitch world? I have a couple minutes to talk about that. First of all, I'm working on, I started, sorry, I'm trying to find something to put behind this. I don't like the March wordplay. Nothing, I mean, all the wordplays are awesome, but the March just doesn't strike me for whatever reason. I don't know why. And so, but I loved, again, inspired by Colleen, I loved the April one. And so that's my start on the April wordplay. I love that. Oh my goodness, I love that. I need to get that done. That's just, those wordplays are killer. And then, of course, I jumped on the bandwagon because Julie at Reflections Framing and Stitching makes it so easy. And I started from our friends at Hands On Design and Miss Priscilla. I started the small version of Fresh Eggs Farm. Fresh Eggs Farm, yeah, the small version of Fresh Eggs Farm, but kitted both of them up. I am using the called for fabric, and I am struggling. It is dark. It is this. The colors here. You know, I had really good lighting. Now the sun's starting to come out, so it looks like this. It's so pretty. The fabric is just gorgeous. It looks to me like a really dark, it's bluer than it is black, but I don't know if it's coming up that way for you. It's hard to stitch on. It's super hard to stitch on. Here's what I noticed is that it got easier as I worked on it a little bit. So hopefully it just takes a little bit of practice and getting used to that dark, and keeping a light piece of fabric in my lap underneath helps, and lots of magnification helps, and so I'll just keep at it. Julie came up with a sheet, and she and I were both, you know, this is a lovely design any way you crack it, but get it, crack it. It seems flip-flopped. It seems like it should say farm fresh eggs, and so that's how I'm doing it. I'm just reversing these 2 rows. So I'm putting farm up here and centering it, and then fresh eggs below. And we had to increase the size of the fabric just a little bit. But then I would like to do this as an ornament, and I would like to just do some chickens in an ornament. I mean, I would like to do this 15,000 times, and you know, of course, and the colors. Look at those colors. Oh, killer. Along with that, I started this last year, and I kind of put it away and forgot about it, and then Priscilla got it out the other day and inspired me to get it back out. The Cricut Collection Fresh Eggs, which I love. Well, I'm sorry, my light is just awful. You can barely see that. Anyway, there's my little chicken and my eggs. Okay, I've gone over, so I'll have to edit this down a little bit. Stand by.